We know the deal with Ethereum, right? It's this incredible hub of innovation, a vibrant digital city just exploding with dApps. But scaling it, that's been the monumental challenge.
Hmm.
Congestion hits, fees spike, and suddenly participating in this amazing ecosystem feels like, I don't know, navigating rush hour traffic on a bicycle made of solid gold.
Yeah, it's the classic blockchain dilemma, isn't it?
Mm.
Power versus accessibility. How do you unlock the full potential of Ethereum, move beyond, thousands of users, and genuinely make it accessible and affordable for billions globally? That's the big question driving so much development right now.
And that question brings us directly to today's deep dive. We're unpacking Scroll, which is a Layer 2 zkEVM rollup built specifically to tackle that scaling bottleneck.
Right.
And this deep dive, it's drawn directly from the reports and analysis you shared with us, giving us a window into Scroll's world as of, well, October 2024.
Yeah, our mission here is really to cut through the noise, pull out the crucial insights. We want to understand Scroll's core, how it functions, the progress it's making, and what its native token, SCR, is designed to do. Let's get right into the engine room.
Okay, so at its heart, Scroll is a Layer 2 solution sitting atop Ethereum. It's using something called a zkRollup. Maybe tell us what that actually means in the context of tackling high fees and slow speeds.
Okay, so essentially, a zkRollup bundles up like thousands of transactions off the main Ethereum chain.
Yeah.
That's Layer 1, processes them efficiently off-chain, and then uses zero-knowledge proofs, these cryptographic proofs, to generate a highly compressed proof that all those transactions were valid.
Right, so instead of Ethereum having to rerun everything.
Exactly. Ethereum just needs to verify that single elegant proof, and that's where the huge cost savings and speed increases come from. It's much less work for Layer 1.
And your sources really highlight their specific approach here, focusing on the bytecode level compatible zkEVM. Now that sounds pretty technical, but what's the real takeaway for developers, for users?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. Bytecode level compatible means Scroll's virtual machine is designed to behave almost identically to Ethereum's own EVM, like at the deepest technical level.
Okay.
So for developers, this is huge. It means they can often take existing smart contracts, existing tools built for Ethereum, and deploy them on Scroll with minimal, maybe even zero, modifications.
Ah, so it drastically lowers the friction, makes it a much more natural extension for them.
Precisely. It's easier to migrate or build new dApps if you don't have to rewrite everything. They already know the ecosystem.
It sounds like they're really prioritizing that developer experience, which is, well, key to attracting projects, isn't it? And the sources mentioned this wasn't just them working alone. They collaborated directly with the Ethereum Foundation's Zeek team and used the Halo 2 proving system.
Yeah, that collaboration, I think it speaks volumes about their alignment and their foundational approach. It's not just building on Ethereum. It's like building with Ethereum's core research. And beyond the software, they're pushing on hardware too. The sources point to PipeZK, which aims to open up the ZK hardware market, make it more accessible.
Okay.
And their own GPU prover, which they claim is 10x faster than CPU for generating those crucial proofs.
10 times faster. Wow. That seems like a really critical piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
If proof generation is faster, doesn't that speed up the final confirmation time for transactions?
Absolutely. Faster proof generation is crucial for reducing the latency, the time it takes for a transaction batch to be fully verified and finalized back on Ethereum Layer 1. It impacts the user experience, definitely, and how quickly applications can rely on that absolute L1 security guarantee.
Okay, so we have the core tech, the zkEVM, the hardware push. How does the whole system actually hang together? Your sources break the architecture down into layers.
Right. Think of it like a pipeline, sort of. First, you have the sequencing layer. This is where user transactions first hit the Scroll network.
The entry point.
Exactly. Nodes here order the transactions, execute them, bundle them into batches, and then post the transaction data and some initial commitments about these batches onto Ethereum Layer 1.
Okay, so that's entry and initial processing. What happens after they're sequenced and the data's posted?
Then they move to the proving layer. This layer has a coordinator, and its job is to distribute these batches to a whole pool of specialized provers. These provers are the ones doing the heavy lifting, generating those complex zkEVM validity proofs we talked about.
The cryptographic magic.
Pretty much. The proof that guarantees all the transactions in that batch were executed correctly according to the rules.
And then it all gets anchored back securely to Ethereum with the final layer, the settlement layer.
Exactly. And this layer actually lives on Ethereum L1 itself. It contains the bridge contracts for moving assets and the rollup contract. These contracts provide the definitive canonical ordering for the scroll chain based on the L1 posting.
Uh-huh.
And critically, they verify the validity proof submitted by the proving layer. Once a proof is verified here, on L1, that batch of transactions on scroll is considered finalized, irreversible, as secure as Ethereum itself. This layer also handles the messaging and asset movement between L1 and L2.
That makes sense, the structure. Your sources also walk through the actual journey a single transaction takes, describing different phases and, importantly, how long they typically take.
Yes, they highlight 3 key phases for a user's transaction. First, confirmed. This is supposed to be almost immediate feedback, usually within about 3 seconds. It's when the transaction is received by the sequencer and acknowledged within the L2 network.
So you see it pop up in your wallet pretty quickly.
Right. It's acknowledged, you'll see it reflected in your L2 wallet or the dApp interface. Good for immediate interaction.
But like you said, that's not the final word, is it?
No, exactly. The next stage is committed. This happens when the badge containing your transaction is actually posted onto Ethereum Layer 1.
Yeah.
So the raw data is now available and verifiable on L1. This usually happens within minutes, according to the sources.
Okay, so a higher level of confidence because the data is anchored on L1.
Precisely. Even though the proof hasn't been verified yet, the data's there. It's a stronger guarantee than just confirmed.
And the absolute finality, the point of no return.
That's the finalized stage. This is the big one, is when the validity proof for that specific batch is successfully generated by the provers and then verified by that settlement layer contract on Ethereum L1.
Right.
At this point, the transaction is irreversibly confirmed by the full security of Ethereum. The sources indicate this finalization phase typically takes tens of minutes, maybe 20, 30 minutes, something like that.
So why is it important for users and maybe developers too to understand these different stages? Confirmed, committed, finalized, and at the different timings.
Well, it's really about managing risk and user experience expectations, right?
Yeah.
For many everyday actions within Scroll, like, say, swapping tokens on a DX that's running on Scroll L2, that initial confirmed stage might be perfectly sufficient for the dApp to proceed and show you the result.
That's good.
But for higher value transfers, or crucially for withdrawing assets back from Scroll to Ethereum L1, you absolutely need the highest level of security. You need to wait for finalized.
I see. So different applications can build their logic around these stages depending on the level of security required for a particular action.
Exactly. It allows for that trade-off between speed and finality based on the context.
Okay, so Scroll has this specific tech, this architecture, these stages,
Oh,
all designed to scale Ethereum. What's the grand ambition behind all of this effort? What's their mission statement, so to speak?
The sources lay out a pretty bold mission, actually. They talk about bringing billions of users into Ethereum's ecosystem.
Billions. That's
Yeah.
ambition.
It is. They also state they aim to be the most secure and trusted Layer 2 network, envisioning processing trillions of dollars on-chain and becoming, quote, the default place for new innovations.
And that vision they mention of egalitarian access, that ties back to making Ethereum truly global and inclusive, doesn't it? Lowering those barriers we talked about.
Absolutely. It speaks to a desire to significantly lower the barrier to entry, both in terms of cost and complexity. And their value proposition, as the sources summarize it, seems designed to deliver on this.
Like the bytecode level equivalent zkEVM we discussed.
Right. That's key for developer ease. Then there's the deep alignment being built with the Ethereum Foundation. And importantly, the future goal of decentralizing the provers and sequencers. That's a critical goal for any Layer 2 aiming for true resilience and community ownership.
Let's look at how they're actually executing on that vision then. The Scroll mainnet launched, October 2023, and they've had some notable technical milestones since then, according to your sources.
Definitely. Implementing EIP 4844 data blobs in April 2024 was a big one for all rollups, including Scroll.
Ah, the proto-dink sharding upgrade.
Exactly. That Ethereum upgrade makes storing Layer 2 transaction data on L1 much, much cheaper, which directly translates to lower gas fees for Scroll users, a tangible benefit.
And they've continued optimizing since then. The sources mention a Darwin upgrade.
Yes, the Darwin upgrade in August 2024 reportedly reduced gas fees by another 1.7x, according to the sources, mostly through better proof aggregation, I believe.
Okay, step-by-step improvements.
And there's another upgrade planned for October 2024, aiming for potentially another 1.5x fee reduction. This one involves using more data blobs per commit, and updating their underlying C libraries. Seems like continuous optimization.
And looking further out, H1 2025 plans.
Yeah, the sources mentioned moving to a Rust-based sequencer which could offer performance benefits, also introducing transaction parallelism and optimizing their data structure, the TRI structure.
Moving to Rust and adding transaction parallelism. That sounds like they're really focused on pushing the performance limits, doesn't it? What might transaction parallelism actually enable for users or dApp?
Well, that kind of upgrade is focused on allowing the network to process multiple transactions simultaneously if they aren't dependent on each other,
Yeah.
They don't touch the same state.
Right.
So for dApps, this could mean higher theoretical throughput, faster overall execution for batches of user interactions. It could make complex applications feel, well, snappier, less waiting.
Okay, beyond the core technical upgrades, they launched something called Scroll Sessions in April 2024. Your sources call it an on-chain incentive mechanism. What was the impact of that program?
Yes. The sources directly link this initiative to a massive uptick in TVL, total value locked on the network. Apparently, it was quite successful.
How successful?
Well, they highlight that as of September 15, 2024, Scroll actually became the hashtag 1ZK chain by PVL, reaching US $1.15 billion.
Wow. Number one zk chain by TVL. And the reports emphasize this, put them explicitly ahead of some big names. Linea, zkSync, Starknet, Tyco, Polygon zk EVM. That's pretty substantial growth in a very competitive landscape.
It really is. It suggests that either the incentive mechanism itself or perhaps the combination of that with the maturing tech and ecosystem really resonated strongly with users and protocols deploying capital on a Scroll.
Makes sense. Incentives work.
And the sources also note strong general ecosystem health metrics around that time. Close to $800 million of DeFi TVL by late September 2024, and holding the top stablecoin market cap among ZK chains, over $100 million. These numbers point towards real economic activity happening on Scroll, not just speculative value.
Okay. Another initiative that caught my eye in the sources is Scroll Canvas, launched more recently in July 2024. It's focused on-chain attestation. What exactly is that, and why is it significant?
Right, attestations. In this context, think of them as verifiable statements or claims made on-chain, like someone attesting that they've completed a certain action, maybe finished a tutorial, or a protocol attesting to a user's interaction history. Their loyalty, perhaps.
So like digital credentials or records on the blockchain?
Kind of, yeah. Verifiable claims. And the sources highlight that within just a month of launching Canvas, Scroll became the hashtag 1 chain for EAS attestations. EAS is the Ethereum attestation service, a standard for this. They apparently hit over 3 million cumulative attestations very quickly.
Number one, again, quickly. And the sources point out they had 5.5x more attestations than the next closest chain, which was Base at the time. That kind of rapid adoption for a specific feature seems notable. What are the potential applications here? Why are attestations important?
Well, this seems to directly address that bigger vision of bringing in billions of users and enabling real-world use cases, right? The sources list possibilities like identity proof, maybe linking off-chain identity verification to an on-chain attestation. Also things like KYCML processes, voting systems, governance participation, proving membership in a DAO or loyalty to a brand, creating on-chain registries.
So it's a primitive for building verifiable reputation and credentials based on activity.
Exactly. It's a foundational building block.
Yeah.
If you want to move complex real-world interactions onto the blockchain, you need ways to represent trust, identity, history, skills, achievements in a verifiable, standardized way. This seems like a core piece for onboarding those new kinds of users and applications beyond just finance.
That makes a lot of sense, linking on-chain actions to potential real-world identities or building up digital histories.
Yeah.
Crucial for things like compliance, sure, but also for building maybe more sophisticated digital communities or economy.
Precisely. It offers a structured way to do that.
Okay, so beyond these newer features like sessions and Canvas, the core Scroll mainnet itself still offers benefits the sources mentioned, like being consistently 10x cheaper than Ethereum mainnet, providing higher throughput, good uptime.
Yes. The fundamental scaling benefits.
And they also list some existing tools like the Scroll SDK for developers wanting to launch their own L2s using Scroll tech, potentially, and Keystore, which sounds like a smart contract wallet solution.
Right, building out the broader toolkit. Now, moving on from the technology and the adoption metrics, let's maybe talk about the token that powers the network, SCR. Your sources identify it clearly as the native utility and governance token.
And the governance function was live right from day one, which is interesting, allowing token holders to participate immediately in decision-making about the protocol's future development.
Yeah, that immediate governance capability is pretty key for decentralized protocols, signals intent. And the sources also detail a range of planned future use cases for SCR. A primary one seems to be its role as the protocol token for actually decentralizing the network's key operators, specifically the sequencers and the provers we discussed earlier.
So using the token to incentivize people to run those crucial parts of the network.
Exactly. This is a critical step towards making the network truly censorship-resistant and community-owned, moving away from a potentially centralized initial setup.
So the token will be integral to the network's full decentralization journey.
That seems to be the plan. It's also envisioned for coordinating multi-chain innovation, whatever that might entail, enabling staking mechanisms, perhaps for securing the network or earning rewards, potentially facilitating gas-free transactions in certain contexts, maybe subsidized by gaps, and just overall incentive coordination across the ecosystem, encouraging participation and growth.
Okay. And the sources provide the token supply specifics. As of October 10th, 2024.
Yes. The total supply is fixed at 1 million SCR, 1 billion tokens.
1 billion. And the initial circulating supply, when it first lists.
That's stated as 190 mils in million, which represents 19% of the total supply. The sources also give a breakdown of the allocation across different categories.
Right. Let's quickly touch on that. The distribution shows a pretty significant portion, 29.50%, allocated to ecosystem and growth. That includes a 10% DAO treasury within it. That sounds like it's geared towards funding future development, grants, DApp adoption.
It's likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Supporting the ecosystem long term. Then there's 5.50% for the Binance launch pool that was happening around that time, 15.0% allocated for airdrops.
The airdrops. Split how?
Split into 7% for an initial airdrop, #1, and 8% reserved for potential future airdrops. Then 10.0% for the foundation running the project, 22.95% for contributors, presumably the core team and early builders, and finally 17.05% for investors.
Okay, so that allocation structure gives a sense of how the supply is initially distributed to support the project's various stakeholders and future plans.
Yes, it outlines the initial setup.
Now, looking at the commercial and business development side, the sources list quite a few integrations. It shows Scroll is actively connecting with the wider crypto ecosystem.
Yeah, it definitely highlights their growing utility and acceptance. They've integrated with major DeFi players, foundational protocols like Aave, Compound, Lido.
Yeah.
Getting those is important for legitimacy and liquidity.
And also custody and wallet solutions like Kobo and Trust Wallet, which are obviously important for user access and security, makes it easier for people to hold and use SCR or interact with Scroll dApps.
Right. And liquid staking protocols, too, like StakeStone and EtherFi are on the list. The source even mentions EtherFi rolled out some kind of Visa Cash card running on Scroll.
Interesting, a real-world link there.
Yeah. And Athena, the decentralized stablecoin protocol, is also integrated. Plus, importantly for developers, having major tooling providers like Alchemy available makes it easier for teams to actually build on Scroll.
So these integrations, they demonstrate real-world connection and utility being built out, not just theoretical potential.
Exactly. It shows adoption by other key players in the space. Finally, the sources just briefly point to a broad community presence. They list the website, blog, multiple Twitter accounts covering different regions and topics, Telegram, Farcaster, LinkedIn, YouTube, Discord.
So a wide footprint online.
Yeah, this wide array of channels suggests an active effort to build and engage a diverse global community around the project, which is crucial for any decentralized network.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive based purely on the material you provided us, we've seen how Scroll is building this bytecode-compatible zkEVM layer 2, really aiming to scale Ethereum. We dug into its technical architecture, the sequencing, proving, settlement layers, and that transaction flow with its different finality stages. We understood its bold mission, onboarding billions, the egalitarian access goal. We tracked its significant progress through technical upgrades like EIP 4844 and Darwin, and that impressive growth in TVL, seemingly boosted by initiatives like Scroll Sessions.
Right, and we highlighted the potential of Scroll Canvas for on-chain attestations, possibly opening doors to more real-world use cases.
And finally, we detailed the utility and distribution of the SCR token, which looks set to play a really key role in the network's future governance and, crucially, its decentralization.
It's clear they are executing across multiple fronts simultaneously: the core tech development, the ecosystem growth through incentives and new primitives like attestations, and building out the token functionality for governance and the eventual decentralization of sequencers and provers.
Yeah. This deep dive, really powered by your sources, has given us a concentrated look at a major player focused intently on solving Ethereum's big scaling puzzle.
And thinking about that core mission again, bringing billions on-chain, enabling that egalitarian access, and considering how potentially critical these attestations are becoming for identity, for reputation, for real-world use cases.
And knowing that the SCR token itself is designed to help decentralize the core network infrastructure, like those provers and sequencers, taking power away from any single entity.
Based purely on the sources you shared, here's maybe a thought to leave you with. If on-chain attestations do become the standard way we build digital reputation and enable all sorts of diverse real-world applications on-chain, and the network's fundamental operations, the sequencing and proving, are eventually controlled and run by decentralized token-incentivized participants, how might those two pieces, reputation and decentralized infrastructure, actually come together to fundamentally reshape what an egalitarian access network looks like for the end user? Moving beyond just simple token transfers to perhaps more complex, maybe even reputation-gated interactions, all on a credibly neutral platform. What does that future really unlock?